بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. This is being recorded. We are almost complete with the chapter of Al-Mu'arabat, meaning the inflected words. Today we will talk about the words that are inflected using letters. This is the second type, right? We said there are two types of words, or two types of inflected words. The first type is are the words that are inflected using diacritical marks. And today, inshallah, we'll talk about the words that are inflected using letters. And obviously, as I told you before, everything that we're mentioning here has been mentioned before, but from a different angle, from a different perspective. I told you that how it's different, the way we were looking at it. Previously, we were looking at it from the angle of al-i'rab inflection. So the inflection i'rab was in the middle, and everything else we discussed was basically a branch of that basically main point or main topic that we're discussing, which was the i'rab. And today we'll make the inflected words, or just like we did last week as well. The inflected words are in the middle, and we'll talk about i'rab in their light. Does that make sense? We'll talk about the i'rab, how it relates to the inflected words. So, like I said, we will discuss the words that are inflected using letters today. And the author says, rahimahullah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَالَّذِي يُعْرَبُ بِالْحُرُوفِ أَرْبَعَةُ أَنْوَاعٍ. And the inflected words that are inflected using letters are four types. Are how many types? Four types. Now, before we go any further, besides tathniya, and besides what I have on this slide, can someone tell me one other word that is inflected using letters? You should know this from previous weeks. Just one type of word that is inflected using letters. Should be easy for you. We talked about this many times, this type.
The particles?
So the particles become the agent of these words that are inflected using letters. But what are those words?
Imperfect verb.
Muslimun can be an example, right?
So very good. The imperfect verb, but a particular type of imperfect verb. Either one of the five verbs. I'm sorry, go ahead, brother. Yeah, so brother Fahad, you said, what'd you say? Can you repeat what you said, brother Fahad?
I said Muslimun, but I think that's wrong. It should be, if it's the five inflected, the verbs.
Yeah.
The father, the brother.
Yeah. Yaktubani, yaktubuna, taktubani, taktubuna, taktubina. So these are all inflected using letters. Why? Because their rafa is with a noon, and their nasab and jazm is with the omission of noon, right? So that is one type of imperfect verb that is inflected using letters. The other type of imperfect verb that is inflected with letters is the imperfect verb with a faulty letter at the end, meaning either an alif or a waw or a ya at the end. And the example that we gave last time was yaqdi. The example that we gave a few weeks ago was yaqdi. Yaqdi, ya, qaf, da, and ya. And if you make it majzoom, you remove the ya. You remove the unhealthy or the faulty word. And this was explained thoroughly in the previous weeks. If you wanna go ahead and review, watch the videos, inshallah. But so going back to what we are discussing today, the first type of word that is inflected using letters that the author mentions is a tathniya, meaning the dual noun. The dual noun, and what The example that Brother Fahad Haidar gave was for the dual noun Muslimani, and this is correct. The Muslimani, like the two men, is correct, and it would be inflected using letters. And inshallah, we'll talk about how it gets inflected in a few minutes. Al-Muslimani. Al-Muslimani. Okay, and then the second type of word that is inflected using letters is وجمع المذكر السالم. The sound masculine plural. The sound masculine plural. Can someone tell me what the sound masculine plural is? An example of the sound masculine plural. Just look at this. How would you make this plural? You guys remember? How would you make al-Muslimani plural?
Waw and noon, right?
Yeah, very good. Good job. Yeah. Barakallahu fikum. Al-Muslimuna. Seems like it's gonna. Anyhow, so yeah, it's froze again. Okay, so while we're waiting for this to unfreeze, any questions? Do you understand what I mean when I say that we've already covered all these, but from a different angle? Do you understand when I say previously we had put the Arab in the center, and everything else was being discussed in the light of Arab and as how it relates to Arab, but now we have put the inflected words in the center, and everything is being discussed in the light of the inflected words, meaning how it relates to the inflected words. For example, Arab, we're discussing Arab right now, but we're discussing Arab in a way that it relates to the inflected words. Yeah, if you review the book and you memorize what we have discussed, that will become much more clear to you what I'm saying, but perhaps at this point it may be a bit confusing.
Sheikh, whatever we are studying right now, it looks like a bottom-up approach. And when we were studying the chapter of Al-Arab, it seemed like a top-down approach.
Yeah,
we have the Al-Arab,
yeah.
and yes.
I think you put it much nicer than I did, so this is exactly how we're doing it. Yeah. Jazakumullah khairan. So that's the second. So the tathniya, meaning the dual noun, and the sound masculine plural, they are inflected using letters. What else? The author continues, وَالْأَسْمَاءُ الْخَمْسَةُ وَالْأَسْمَاءُ الْخَمْسَةُ وَالْأَسْمَاءُ الْخَمْسَةُ, the 5 exceptional nouns. And I believe this is what Brother Muhammad was mentioning. What are the 5 exceptional nouns? Abuka, right? Abuka.
Your father, your brother.
Yes.
Your cousin.
No, I'm not your cousin. You're just gonna
Yeah.
name all the family members now.
No, I'm bringing all the family members. Your father, your brother.
Your in-laws, your mouth,
Yes,
your
yes,
possession.
your in-laws. Yes, very good. I guess your in-laws are pretty much all your family, right? These days. Once you get married, your in-laws become your only family. Brother Muhammad knows.
You have to do more for your in-laws in the sense of, expressing things. Because your family understands, even if you don't express.
To them.
Very good point, mashallah. Very good point. Okay, so I'm gonna translate these now to English. So let me, because if I translate, it's gonna freeze again. I'm just gonna translate them verbally, and then after the class, I'm gonna write them in English. So Abuka is your father, Akhuka is your brother, Hamuki is your in-laws, Fuka is your mouth, and Mal is the possessor. Dhu is the possessor. Mal is wealth. Mal is the possessor of wealth. Okay. Okay. And then how? Why does their inflection? Why is their inflection using letters? Because when you make the mansub, the waw in the middle becomes alif. When you make the makhfud, the waw becomes ya. So the inflection changes because with the letters, or we are changing the inflection by changing the letters. والأسماء الخمسة. The author says والأفعال الخمسة والأفعال الخمسة, meaning the fourth type of words that are inflected using letters are the 5 verbs, and the 5 verbs are the famous 5 that we've always talking about. We've been always talking about. يكتبان, يكتبون, تكتبان, تكتبون, and taktubina, right? And these are all inflected. They're using letters, meaning the rafa for these verbs is by keeping the noon. The existence of noon is a sign of rafa, and the emission of noon is a sign of nasab, and also a sign of jazm. Okay. So these are the 4 type of words, and these are the 4 types of words that are inflected using letters. Now he's gonna go through each one of them and tell us how they're inflected. I already mentioned this, but the author, rahimahullah, will explicitly mention each of them and tell us how they're inflected. He says, فأما التثنية فترفع بالألف وتنصب وتخفض بالياء. In the case of the dual noun, meaning in our example al-muslimani, in the case of the dual noun, it is made marfu using alif, al-muslimani, right? It is made mansub and makhfud using al-ya, al-muslimaini, like that, al-muslimaini. That is the dual noun, right? Al-muslimani is marfu, al-muslimaini is mansub or makhfud. The next one, which is the sound feminine masculine plural, the author says وَأَمَّا جَمْعُ الْمُذَكَّرِ السَّالِمُ فَيُرْفَعُ بِالْوَاوِ وَيُنْصَبُ وَيُخْفَضُ بِالْيَاءِ. In the case of the sound masculine plural, it is made marfu with al-waw and mansub and makhfud with al-ya. So the example would be بالياء. So the example would be al-muslimani, muslimuna. This is marfu, and then the mansub and mahfud would be al-muslimina. So the difference between the dual and the plural when it comes to khafd and nasb is that in one you pronounce the first in tathniya you pronounce it al-muslimaini, in jama' or the plural you pronounce it al-muslimina. So in the dual it's pronounced muslimain with the fatha on mim, and in the plural it is pronounced muslimin with a kasra underneath mim. Right, that's the difference, and I've already discussed that in one of the previous videos. Please watch that video for a detailed explanation. That is the plural sound, masculine plural. Now the third one that we discussed was the 5 exceptional nouns. So the author says وَأَمَّا الْأَسْمَاءُ الْخَمْسَةُ فَتُرْفَعُ بِالْوَاوِ وَتُنْصَبُ بِالْأَلِفِ وَتُخْفَضُ بِالْيَاءِ. In the case of the 5 exceptional nouns, they are made marfu' using al-waw, and they're made mansub using al-alif, and they're made makhfud using al-ya. And the way I translated it is in the case of the 5 exceptional nouns that are made marfu' with al-waw, mansub and with alif, and makhfud with al-ya. So we'll just take the example of abuka, which is your father, and we'll go through all the different Arabs or inflections for abuka, so it becomes clear to you. Again, this is review. We've already discussed this, but it never hurts to review again. Abuka. This is marfu'. Abaki. This is mansub. Abika. This is makhfud. You see how the rafa is with waw, the nasab is with alif, and the khafd is with ya, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the last one are the 5 verbs. The author says وَأَمَّا الْأَفْعَالُ الْخَمْسَةُ فَتُرْفَعُ بِالنُّونِ وَتُنْصَبُ وَتُجْزَمُ بِحَذْفِهَا. In the case of the 5 verbs, they are made marfu' with an-nun, and they are made and mansub and majzoom by its emission, right? And made majzoom and mansub by its emission. So for example, let's take one of the 5 exceptional nouns, yaktubani. Here the noon exists or is present at the end of the word, so it is marfu'. But if I do lam yaktuba or lan yaktuba, right? So in both of these cases, the noon is omitted, because in the first case it is made majzoom, in the second case it is made mansub. In the first case it is made majzoom. How do we know when it is made majzoom and when it is made mansub? We look at the agent. So for example, in the first one, lam yaktuba, the agent is the agent of jazm. In lan yaktuba, the agent is the agent of nasab, and lam yaktuba, the agent, which is lam, is the agent of jazm. And inshallah, we'll discuss all of these agents. We're really close to discussing all these agents. Inshallah, next week we may be able to start discussing that. Allah willing, inshallah. But yeah, so that concludes the chapter of inflections. It concludes the chapter of the inflected words, and we are basically ready to tackle some bigger things, right? So at this point, the author has given us a good foundation. That is why I kept on mentioning this is something you need to you need to know by heart. And because once we pass this point, we pass this kind of junction point, if we have not understood i'rab and everything that has been said to us by the author about i'rab, it will be hard for us to understand what he's about to say next. So I would like to would like us to stop here for this week and ask any questions that you may have. And also, what I want to do right now is, remember I gave you guys an ayah, a verse to practice on, to find the inflections and to find the verbs, the nouns, the particles. So I will write that verse here now, and we'll go over it together, inshallah.
Sheikh.
Yes.
Before we go to the verse, can I ask a different question about the terms that we have been using so far? Sheikh, all throughout our this lesson, we have been using the terms marfu, mansub, majrur, mahfud, and mazzoom. And I was trying to find the direct meaning of these words. I don't think you have ever mentioned the meaning of these words, the English equivalent of these words. So what I found that marfu, the meaning of the marfu is whenever a word is in its normal state, that is, it has not been changed at the end. Then mansub is accusative and mazrur is genitive. I don't know what this means. Are they correct, or there is a different meaning to them in the the classical Arabic term?
Yeah, so all those things I would not consider those translations.
All right.
So when I think there we remember I briefly mentioned this, but the problem was, I think my mistake was I did not put them in the slides. Remember when I was discussing the difference between zalim and mazlum and qatil and maqtul, I told you zalim is the one who commits oppression, and madlum is the receiver of oppression, or the oppressed. Zalim is the oppressor and madlum is the oppressed. So it's the same concept here. When we say marfu', marfu' is the receiver of rafa'. Rafa' is the one who makes it marfu', right? So in other words, marfu' is the word that is made, is the word to which the inflection of rafa' is applied. Marfu' is the word to which the inflection of rafa' is applied. Let me write this. Marfu' is the word to which the inflection of rafa' is applied. I'm writing, I promise. It's just frozen. Yeah, see, I told you. And then mansub is the word to which the inflection of nasb is applied. And then mahfud is the word to which the inflection of
al-kasra
is applied. And then majzoom is the word to which the inflection of jazm is applied. Very good.
I have a question about that, though.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, did you bring up these words having to do with past, present, and future?
No, I think if anything, I may have said these are nouns, and I said about nouns that nouns are not tied to any of the tenses. I may have mentioned that, but I did not. But these words have nothing to do with the tenses because they're nouns.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, well, no problem. Jazakumullah khairan for the question. So, and what I will do here, I will write madloom. Why I will write madloom just so as an example. I want you to remember this because madloom is something that we all use in all of our languages, right? So just always when you think about marfu, mansub, mahfud, and what they mean, think about how madloom is the oppressed and the zalim is the oppressor. So madloom is the one who receives, who is a subject to oppression. So marfu is the word that is the subject to rafa. Mansub is subject to nasab. Mahfud is subject to khafad, and majzoom is subject to jazm. Is that clear?
Yes, Sheikh.
Okay. Jazakumullah khairan.
Jazakallahu khairan.
No problem. Wayakum. Okay, so now let me find that letter for us, or that verse. Allah, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. I really like this website, Al-Ruh. It has many English translations as well, but it has many of the tafasir of the verses. So, for example, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 English translations. It's really simple. It's not fancy. It doesn't load a lot of things or advertisements. So it's really it's fast. So if you want to ever use it, it's a good website. So this is the verse that we will analyze, inshallah. Okay. Okay, can you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys can see, right?
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. Let's start from the beginning. Obviously, this is Ayatul Kursi. You guys probably are familiar with it. This is an ayah full of blessings, And the Prophet ﷺ has said, whoever recites this ayah at night, shaitan cannot go near him or her. So this is a very blessed ayah. It is in the chapter of Al-Baqarah. It is verse number 255. Verse number 255, the chapter of Al-Baqarah, for your reference. He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. What does that mean? You can go here, and instead of me trying to translate it and spend some time, Allah, there is no God but He, the living, the self-subsisting, eternal, no slumber can seize Him nor sleep. His are all things in the heavens and the earth and on earth. Who is there can intercede His presence except in who is there can intercede in His presence except as He permits. He knows what is before or after or behind them, nor shall they compass of anything of His knowledge except as He wishes. His throne doth extend over the heavens and the earth, and He feels not fatigue in guarding and preserving them, for He is the Most High, the Most Supreme. Jalla wa ala, subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's huge. This is a huge matter, right? Too big, it's too great to comprehend. So now let's go over it. Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth. But when it comes to what we discussed, the word Allah, the love of Allah, it falls under which three categories? Is it a noun, verb, or a particle?
Noun.
How do you know it's a noun?
Starts with alif.
So it starts with alif and lam. Yeah, so that's alif and lam. So that's one of these. Based on the opinion that alif and lam and Allah is the particle, the definite article. Yes, that would be the case. Yes. So and then la, you probably would not know what la is. So can you guys spot from here until here? Can you spot any other things that are familiar? Meaning, can you tell me which ones are nouns, which ones are verbs? So,
Ilah
for example, what is? I'm sorry.
Ilah is noun. La ilah.
So ilah is noun, yes. And what is al-hayy?
It is it is not actually a noun, rather it's an adjective.
Which one? Al-hayy? Okay, so so it's a good thing you mentioned that, because we said in Arabic we have three parts of speech, and actually adjectives fall under nouns.
Categories,
right?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
So it's noun.
So al-hayy will be a noun, right? Why? How do we know it's a noun? Because there's alif and lam to begin. Yes. What is al-qayyum?
Another noun.
Same, another noun.
Another noun. Now I'm gonna make it a bit more tricky. What is the inflection of al-hayy? I mean, it's not tricky. You guys should know this because we've been talking about the signs of inflections for many days now. So what is the inflection of al-hayy and what is the inflection of al-qayyum? And what is the inflection of the word Allah?
It has to do with Dhamma.
So exactly, so Dhamma becomes a sign of which type of inflection?
Khafd.
No, so
Rafa, right?
So this is, yeah, who said Rafa?
I did.
Yeah, brother Khadruddin, correct. So Dhamma is a sign of Rafa. So all of these words are marfu. All of these nouns are marfu because they all have Dhamma. Okay.
Well, I have a.
Yes.
What about the Al-Qayyum? Because well, sticking isn't it most. Well, I'm not 100% sure because kind of reminded me of an example, but of an imperfect verb with no attached to the end. But I'm not sure if that's correct.
Yeah. So Al-Qayyum is a noun. So if it was an imperfect verb, it would even if it was an imperfect verb, it would still be a marfu because Dhamma becomes a sign of nouns for imperfect verbs when nothing is attached to their end and there are no faulty letters at the end. So you may have confused it with something else. If you remember what you meant, let us know. But for sure, Al-Qayyum is a noun, and Dhamma becomes a sign of Rafa here. But yeah,
And then the Dhamma.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, brother Khalid?
It's because of the elephant, lamb, and then the Dhamma as well. Like the duplication of it being
exactly. Yeah, so exactly. So the alif and lam give away the fact that it's a noun, and the dhamma gives away the fact that it's marfu. Yeah. And something else we should know here. What type of a noun is this? Is this a dual noun? Or is this a singular noun, dual noun, or plural noun? All of these three. Are these singular nouns? Very good. Because if there were dual nouns, their inflection would not be with a dhamma, but their inflection would be with what? With alif.
Alif and
yeah, alif and yeah. So we would say just alif, even though there's a noon at the end, but we won't mention the noon. So we would an alif. And if there were plural, their inflection would be with a waw and not a dhamma. So the dhamma becomes a sign of rafa only in the singular noun, right? Okay, so now who can tell me? Who can tell me what type of word this is? Concentrate on the first letter. We talked about certain words that start with certain letters at the beginning. What was that?
No, I was reading it. That's all.
Oh, I see.
The sound feminine ta?
No, this is not it. Remember, I told you guys the imperfect verbs usually start with certain letters, and those letters can be all found in the word anaitu, hamza, noon, ya, and ta. So imperfect verbs always start with one of these four letters. Now here ta'khuduhu starts with what? Starts with a ta, right? Ta'khuduhu starts with a ta, and then it ends with a dal that is madmum. So there's a dhamma at the end of the word. So this you don't have to worry about this part yet, but this is a pronoun. This is a pronoun that is attached to the verb. Inshallah, we'll talk about this later. But for now, just concentrate on the first part. تأخذه. تأخذه. So I told you تأخذه is an imperfect verb because we know there's a ta at the beginning, and ta is the sign of mudara, or meaning it is a sign of imperfect. It is a sign for imperfect verbs. just like Hamza is, just like Noon is, and just like Ya is. But what is the inflection of this imperfect verb? What do we have at the end? No, just look at the end. Try again. We'll look at the end and try again.
Dhamma marfu.
Yes, yes, Rafa, marfu. Because we said the sign of Dhamma becomes the sign of Rafa and the imperfect verbs, right? Very good.
Would you say the article of oath? Sorry.
No, which one?
The ta at the beginning of the word, right? So would that make it a particle of oath as well?
No. So basically, a particle of oath would yeah. So I guess this will come with practice. You may not.
Oh wait, sorry. That's for nouns, isn't it? Oops.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you answered yourself. No, that's good. I'm happy you found out before I answered. Jazakumullah khairan. It says, yeah. Yes. Brother Rajul, did you have a question?
Yes, Sheikh. Yes. Can you hear me?
Barely.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, so it cuts off. It comes and goes.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear, yes.
Am I loud enough, Sheikh?
Yes.
Sheikh, I was saying that for the imperfect verb, we'll be able to identify the imperfect verb whenever the word starts with either Noon, Hamza, Ta, and Ya.
Yes.
Sheikh, so this is an imperfect verb because it ends with it has a inflection of Dhamma, and we have studied that for imperfect verb, whenever there is a Dhamma, it's a inflection of Rafa.
Yes.
Am I correct? Yeah, but Sheikh, there was something else written, which is imperfect verb, which has nothing attached to its end. So,
yeah.
What does that mean, and how does it apply to this word? That there's nothing attached to this.
Yeah. So if what we mean when we say nothing attached to its end, meaning it's not one of the five verbs. Remember the five verbs? Yaktubani, for example, if this was one of the five verbs, it would be ta'khudani, and in that case, at the end of the verb there would be an alif and a noon.
Oh, okay, all right.
Right. So there's nothing attached to it, meaning there are no pronouns attached to it, because alif and a noon, that alif is a pronoun, so the alif and the waw and the ya and the five exceptional nouns, they're all pronouns. Yaktubani, alif is a pronoun. Yaktubuna, waw is a pronoun. Taktubina, ya is a pronoun. So basically, if those pronouns are not attached to the end of the word, it would be made marfu' using dhamma.
Sheikh, understood.
Okay. Jazakumullah khairan. Sinatun. Can anyone tell me? And there's, I'm not sure from whose side this is. There's a bit of background noise, so if you could mute. Yes, better now. Jazakumullah khairan. Sinatun. Sina. What is this? Is a verb, noun, or particle?
Noun.
Noun. Why?
It's an adjective. Sinatun means slumber.
Yeah, but so you're looking at it from you said it based on the meaning. I want you to look at the word itself based on how it's written. Are there any signs of being a noun?
Dhamma.
So what is that called? The double dhamma?
Dhammatain.
Dhammatain, yeah. And that falls under which category?
It's because it has a tanween, right?
Khafat.
Yeah, exactly. Tanween. No, tanween. So tanween, is one of the signs of nouns. We said
yes, sorry. Tanween.
Yeah,
sorry.
we said nouns are known by tanween, khafad, alif, and lam, and the particles of khaf, right?
Yes.
So this makes it a noun, right? So this makes it a noun. Now, tricky, not a trick question, but you should know this because it's easy. La, is it a noun or a particle or a verb? Now go back and try to refresh my memory on the signs of particles and the signs of verbs and the signs of nouns. Which one would this fall under? La.
The sign of particles includes lam, right?
No,
particles are not do not have anything that has nouns or verbs.
Yeah, that does not have any signs of nouns or verbs. So who said particle at the beginning? Was you, brother Fahad? You said for particle?
Yeah, that was me actually. Yeah.
Yes, that's the correct. So that's the correct answer. Brother Fadluddin, you mentioned the correct sign of particles. Jazakumullah khairan. And I believe Brother Fahad, before you gave us the answer itself. The answer is particles. So the answer that this is a particle. Why? Because of what Brother Fadluddin mentioned. La does not have any of the signs of verbs, nor does it have any of the signs of nouns. Isn't that interesting?
It makes it easier to understand because it's like you're eliminating. It's like process of elimination. You're eliminating.
Yes, exactly, very true. Process of elimination. Oh, so I've taken so many tests. I passed a lot of them too using the process of elimination. Yeah. Yes.
The word sinatun, it means slumber, sleep.
Yeah, slumber. Yes.
So it's a verb, and the letter sin.
How is sleep or slumber verb? Sleeping, the action is verb, but not sleep itself.
Sleeping is verb. Sleep is noun. Oh, all right. So then
it can be noun
the letter
as well as verb, but in this case, it's a noun.
All right, Sheikh, this is a noun or a verb? I'm confused here. How is
but
it implying?
The thing is, sleeping is this action because you're something that's involuntary. You're asleep. You can't do anything when you're asleep because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has taken your soul, right? So that means that it's something beyond your control. So it can not be a verb.
Yes, I think we're having a good discussion right now. So there are a few things we got to discuss. First of all, how are we determining whether something is a verb or a noun or a particle without knowing the meaning, right? Without knowing the meaning, which right now at this point we don't know the meaning, right? Because this is the first book we're studying. How do we know if sinatun is a noun or a verb or a particle without knowing the meaning? The only thing that we have to go by are the signs, right?
Yes.
So based on the signs, so based on the signs, sinatun is what? Is because it has a tanween, and tanween is a sign of what? Tanween is a sign of nouns, right?
Noun, yes.
So so tanween is a sign of nouns. Now, okay, so that's taken care of. We already know that's a noun. Now let's go to the meaning. Sleep. So when you say he is sleep, that would be a noun, right? When you say he is sleep, he is sleeping or he is sleep. Don't we say that sometimes? He is sleep or he's awake.
He's put to sleep.
Actually, brother Sahel, like the more they talk about this, the more it actually makes sense because by definition, words like slumber itself, without anything like it's like interfering with the meaning itself. By itself it's a particle, but when you add like specific things, then it starts to become a noun or a verb. But by definition, slumber itself is just a particle. It actually makes a lot of sense now. If you think about it. It actually goes to show you how well like the language of Arabic is, and how like it's crazy actually.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like that, the same word can take the verb, be a verb and a noun. But the thing is here, slumber or sinatun cannot be a particle because it has one of the signs of nouns, right? But I do agree with you. For example, sleep. If you mean it as an imperative command, so you're telling someone to sleep, that would be a verb, right? Or but when you say he is asleep, you're actually describing him. You're using it as an adjective, or
like the
you're
baby
using it
is
as
put to sleep. So
yes,
in that case,
right?
sleep is a noun.
Yeah, it's a noun. Yeah, but if you say to someone, "Go ahead and sleep," that's like a verb, like you said, sleep. Well, that's like an imperative, right? You're telling him it's a command. Um, so now, so going back to the question, slumber by itself, slumber, I think slumber, there's no confusion about slumber. If you say slumber, slumber is
It's
would like
tiredness or fatigue, right?
yeah, it's noun, right? So there's no
Right.
confusion. Yeah. So
Sheikh,
but when you translate, yeah.
The reason I was asking whether it's a verb or not, because we studied that whenever there is al-sin, that shows the immediateness of a verb. So seeing that, I
Yeah,
thought
so
that it might
very
be a verb too.
yeah. So no, that's a good point. But remember the scene that we were talking about is maftuh, sa'usalli. But this has a kasra. So the haraka, the
Yes.
diacritical marks you should also be taken into consideration.
Oh, all right.
But see, with things like this, the whenever you see a sign of nouns, that overrides everything else, right? It removes all other possibilities,
All right.
because like the noun is the boss, right? A noun is the boss. So if you see one of the signs of the boss, it's a boss. It's not, it cannot be anything else.
Yes.
So we already see tanween. So regardless of whether we see seen, obviously we wouldn't see many other signs of verbs, but you may see a seen at the beginning of a noun, but that would not indicate it as a verb, because and it is possible for a noun to start with any letter, right? For example, if it's the name of a person, the name can be anything. It can be start with any letter.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that takes care of that. And then we have wow. Wow is what type of letter and word is wow?
Particle.
Very good, mashallah. So how do we know it's a particle?
It's not a noun and it's not a verb.
Yeah, very good. Beautiful. We're getting this, brother. I think we're getting good at this. Already talked about la. What is la? Is it a noun or particle or a verb?
Particle.
Particle. Very good. It's a easy question because I've already talked about that. And then naum. Naum, is it a noun, particle, or a verb?
It's a noun.
How do you know?
Because of the
touch
tanween
me.
at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. Jazakumullah khairan. So here, I think I'm gonna. We already hit the 1 hour mark of our class, but I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to go through this verse and figure out what is what. But we will stop here, and I ask that for homework for next week, everyone goes through the whole verse and marks down the nouns, writes down the nouns separately, the verbs separately, and the particles separately. And if you're not sure about something, put it in a separate list. So you have 4 lists. You have the list of nouns, the list of verbs, the list of particles, and then you have the list of unknown that you don't know what they are. Okay, so that's one thing. And then I also want you, for example, in the after the list of like in front of the nouns, in front of the words that you think are nouns, you have to put their inflection and their sign of inflection. And the same thing with the verbs, put their inflection and the sign of inflection. And obviously particles do not have inflections. And with the unknown, inshallah, the things that you did not know, we'll discuss them as a class next week.
On this verse?
Yeah, for this verse, yeah.
So Sheikh, for each of these words, we have to mention whether it's al-rafa, nasab, kaf, jazm, and which signs are bringing up those different inflection. All right, okay. Got it.
Yeah. But like I said, the first thing is you need to identify whether they're nouns, verbs, or particles, and then everything else that you mentioned.
Yes, Sheikh.
Okay, so inshallah, you will be graded on this, just like you were graded on the quiz. So this will determine whether you will move on to the next class, inshallah, next book. So
should we be sending this to you through email or just bring it about?
As soon as you're done, just send me. Write it in a nice format.
Yes.
You can write it, in a PDF and then send it to me, or in an email, send it to me in a Word document and send it to me. But as long as it's a nice format and I can read it.
And prior to your next class.
Yeah, prior to my next class, and that it is typed. It is not.
Yes.
And also to keep an order, make a list for nouns, a list for verbs, a list for particles, and a list for the unknown words. So it becomes clear for me to know what, you know what I mean. Like you just make it
the sequence. We have to maintain the sequence.
Yeah, exactly.
Which appears. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we could separate it verse to verse and do it, inshallah. No? Allahu al-Hayyul Qayyum.
So this is all one verse. It's a very long verse. So
I mean, sorry, in sections. Sorry.
As like I said, as long as it's in order and it makes sense. You as long as you identify, okay, so this is this section, this is the list, this is this section, these are the lists. As long as you identify and I'm able to figure it out, that's fine with me. So inshallah, we will review those answers next week. But regarding what we have discussed or regarding al-i'rab in general, do you have any questions? Like I said, i'rab is the core of Arabic grammar, right? That is why I never ask you for homework, or I never ask you for to memorize or study. I leave it up to you. But I'm going to start pushing you to study and memorize and get together as a group and study, because we're reaching a junction point where not knowing what we have discussed will stop you from understanding what we are going to discuss, right? So I ask that you take this seriously at this point, and inshallah study. Review everything that we have discussed, and if you're able to memorize it. I know you guys are busy, but I personally, this was one of the books that I memorized. There are certain books that you memorize because the process of memorizing helps you understand even better, So I ask you to take this seriously, inshallah, for next week, and I hope to see the fruits of it next week, bi'idhnillah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Any questions before we conclude?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
It had to do with the video that you sent.
Yes.
I like the story of like Prophet Ibrahim, like how alayhi salam, how he brought up like how he came to the conclusions that he did.
Yeah. So
it kind of gave me it reminded me like something similar happened to me. It had to do with destiny. Like it kind of gave me that same feeling that how I came to a conclusion similar to it. I was trying to understand predestiny when I was like I don't know, I think I was like 15. It was kind of a similar situation. Like I thought about two outcomes of doing something right. Like it was just a basic thing that I was trying to do. I was trying to think of doing those two things at the same time, but I couldn't do that because it's impossible, right? To do two things at the same time, like you're gonna have to choose something at the end of the day. But for you to come up with what you chose, and for you to even choose it, maybe you even think about backing out and then choosing another situation, right? It really kind of like tests you, but at the end of the day, you're still gonna choose the result that you were set out to choose in the first place, whether you try to go on a detour or not.
Yeah, so basically we believe in qada and qadar, which is the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So everything that we do is known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is a component which we call kasab, acquisition. So Allah Azza wa Jalla has given us free will as well. So this is one of the mysteries of creation, of our existence. How is it that everything is decreed by Allah Azza wa Jalla, and at the same time we have free will? So this is a mystery that not many people get to understand. But like I said in that video, the closer you get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more you accept your servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more the decisions that you make are in line with Allah Azza wa Jal wants, the more enlightened you become, right? The more easier for you to understand these mysteries that most people wouldn't understand. And that just like how Ibrahim alayhi salam was taken and was shown the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, the mysteries that exist out there, right? All the universe, all the galaxies, all the everything that exists in the heavens and everything that exists on the earth. So those are definitely like things that most people would not understand, right? Because it involves Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helping you and opening doors for you. So, but like going back to your point, yes, it is. I think once if you put everything in perspective and you see everything in the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all your decisions will be correct. But if you ignore Allah and His signs, na'udhu billah, then all your decisions will be incorrect. But Jazakumullah khairan for sharing that, brother Khadaruddin. May Allah reward you. Inshallah, we will stop the recording the call, and then we'll have, if you have any more questions, inshallah, we will. I will stay on the call for 5 more minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I do. I'll wait though.